What's up, fish gang? Welcome back to Monster Fish Only, aka Mofo Fish, where we talk about monster fish and monster tanks. I'm your host, OGP, and today we're talking about how I totally failed at my saltwater aquarium. Yes, I did miserable. Yes, miserable. But there's good news on the horizon. You know what that good news is? You get to hear my intro again. DJ, run the intro.
Hey, fish gang, you know we come alive from the fish tank. Don't be getting mad cause your fish lame. Yeah, every time you hit I do a water change. Fish gang, you know we come alive from the fish tank. Don't be getting mad cause your fish lame. Yeah, every time you hit I do a water change. Water change, 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 water change. I really got a jag in a red tail. Fish game smooth like Denzel. Your boyfriend soft like X.
Now, when we're talking about how I failed miserably at keeping the saltwater tank, I think I may have underestimated it just a wee bit. So I'm going to go over 5 reasons why I failed terribly, and just pretty much just vent a little bit and be completely honest with you guys, and hopefully somebody out there is keeping saltwater and can kind of give me some feedback, and hopefully when I hop back in we'll see how it goes. For now, number 1, I was extremely impatient and I had a big lack of discipline. So I actually converted a freshwater tank into a saltwater tank, and that was like a huge no-no. I decided to leave all the gravel from the previous tank in there, in the sand from the previous tank in there, and there was a bunch of just bacteria and from freshwater. It's completely different from saltwater, and that extended the process by a very long time. So that wasn't good. If you're thinking about doing it, don't waste your time doing it that way. Start completely fresh. Rinse out all the crap, or just go buy you a completely different setup and just start fresh. You'll be way better off. Number 2, the labor. So I had to lug 60 gallons of salt water up 3 flights of stairs. They're 5-gallon buckets. If you do the math, that's 12 buckets. That's a lot of hauling. A lot of hauling. And, every bucket weighs 40 pounds. So, after a couple trips, it's kind of like, all right, now, what are we doing here? So, the other thing is I had to carry up all the sand, and had to carry up equipment and a whole bunch of other junk, and try to do all that, within a certain amount of time, and get all that taken care of. That was a pain in the ass. So there was a lot of labor that went into just the initial setup. Then I had to stare at a tank for about a month and a half with nothing in it. I was testing the water, and it was gradually getting better, but obviously we're impatient, we're fish keepers, wasn't fast enough. So number 3, I lost focus on the mission. The whole reason why I set the stupid tank up in the first place is I wanted to keep a lionfish. But I ended up having to start with smaller fish to make sure it was good for the lionfish, which sent me on like a weird, a whole different direction. And eventually I ended up getting a dwarf lionfish, and it was cool. He had a great time in there, and he was the king, but it wasn't the tank that I wanted to set up. Number 4 was the upkeep. So I failed to do proper water changes. I know, that's my whole thing, to tell you guys, always stay on top of your water changes. Well, this is my first true, adventure into saltwater, and I talked to a buddy of mine that keeps saltwater, and he was like, oh man, it's easy, bro, it's easy. Everything's gonna be easy. And I was like, you sure, man? Everything I heard and everything I read and researched, it's hard. He just kept saying it's easy. Don't worry about it, man, it's easy. I said, all right, cool. Well, it wasn't easy. It was actually pretty complicated, especially in my situation. You can't use water out of your faucet. It's just, you're not going to be able to do it. You have to use reverse osmosis water if you're going to top the tank off, and you're going to have to use actual either pre-mixed, which is what I had to do, or figure out a way to make your tap water extremely safe, like way safer than it has to be for fresh water, and then mixing the salt by hand, get the stupid little, tectometer, and check the salt. And ain't nobody got all time for that. Nobody got time for that. We do big fish. We like the big boy. We want to do the big stuff. We don't got time to be sitting around doing tiny little baby measurements. We don't got time for that. So, in a nutshell, it was a very tedious process, even to just keep up with the water changes. And again, I live up, on the 3rd floor, so I was driving, and getting fresh water or salt water from stores that was pre-mixed, and carrying those up and down the stairs just to do those water changes. The water level, would go down, and then I had to get a bucket of reverse osmosis water just to top it off. It was a lot of work for that scenario. So I would say it's not good if you don't have the energy, the time, or the resources to get a reverse osmosis system installed in your house, and just have the water, drip into the tank and do very gradual water changes over time. It makes the soften perfectly with the protein skimmer and all that mess, which can get very pricey. So that leads us into number 5, and the most important one. It's the money. It costed me somewhere around $500 just to set the tank up. So when we look into how much money I actually spent versus how much I could have got for $500 in a freshwater setup, it just wasn't worth it. It just was not worth it for me. And that's just the beginning. I already had a tank. So imagine even having to go out and buy a new tank. And I got the bare minimum. So could have been, could have played a role into, why it didn't work. But that's not even getting into if you want to start, corals and, frags and all types of other miscellaneous, creatures that you can keep along with your fish. For me, I'm a fish and rocks kind of guy, so I think that's gonna remain that way. I'm not big into coral. It's not really for me. They look cool and everything, but it's not my thing. So I would just want to, I just would like to set up a tank in the eventual with a nice big lionfish and maybe 1 or 2 other large, fish if they get along. But honestly, something similar to how I got Big G set up here. It's just him in here. He's got the whole tank to himself. He loves it. It's nice, it's clean, it's simple, and it's easy. That's what I'd be going for if I was to venture back into it. So, just a piece of advice, if anybody's looking to start a saltwater aquarium, and you don't have the patience, the time, and the energy, this is coming from an experienced hobbyist, okay, to do so, just beware you are getting into some very, 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 very deep water. Just be prepared. Unless you have the money to pay somebody to come take care of it, the initial setup is very, very tedious, and it takes a long time for you to have an established aquarium that you don't have to really worry about as much. So it takes a lot of money, a lot of energy, and a lot of time. So learn from my mistake. Don't do it until you're ready, until you have the time and the energy to dedicate to the hobby. I've heard many stories from many people, they weren't able to do it. So if you have the same attitude I had initially and was like, man, I can do anything and I can hop into it, and I gotta make myself a little bit vulnerable in this situation. Saltwater was very, very difficult. It's doable, it's difficult. The only fish that unfortunately actually survived in that whole process, I purchased some monos, and the monos were swimming around like nothing happened. But even if the water got a little bit foul, everybody else started acting up. Like, they started acting up. If the nitrates went up, they were like, nah man, I don't want to eat, I don't want to swim, I don't want to do nothing. So it takes a lot of hard work and energy and patience to do it the right way. So the takeaways would be, start completely fresh. Don't worry about trying to do an old tank. Don't convert. Start completely fresh. Give the tank adequate time to cycle. purchase all the necessary equipment, and research the hell out of the fish that you want to keep, and be prepared for the work that goes in keeping marine life. But that's all I got for you. I'm out the tank. I appreciate you guys watching. Any marine life, specialists or keepers that want to, hop into the comments and say, hey, this is what you should have did a little bit different, whatever it might be, go ahead and hop in, give us some tips. We're all out here listening. That's what makes the community special. Everybody who's part of the Fish Gang, shout out to you guys. I really appreciate the recent bump in subscriptions. Everybody who recently subscribed to me, I genuinely appreciate you guys. I really do. So, and I appreciate you guys coming back and checking out and watching. So, like I said before, that's all I got for you. I'm out the tank. Thanks for watching. Hey you. Yeah, fish food. If you subscribe to the channel already, then welcome to the Fish Gang. But if you haven't, shame on you. Keep in mind, every time you subscribe to a channel, particularly maybe this one, your fish live a little bit longer. It's science. It's real science. But, in all seriousness, you get a chance to win some free stuff. So hit the subscribe button, enter for your chance to win. All you have to do is just subscribe. It's going to be a Sun canister filter, the 304B, rated for like 525 gallons per hour. I wouldn't give you guys something that I don't personally use or I haven't personally tested, so I do have it on 3 of my tanks. I've got it on this 75 here, and I've got it on 2 125s. So we will be giving it to one of our lucky viewers for absolutely free. All you have to do is just hit the subscribe button, comment you love mofo fish, and hit that like button. We're out the tank.